The man charged with kidnapping and Kada Scott is expected in a Center City courtroom today. Keon King is charged with the October murder.
This morning's hearing is a preliminary hearing, so we are expecting to hear some evidence that's already been collected. This hearing will essentially determine if there's enough evidence at this point to move this case toward trial. Now, ahead of this hearing, we understand that Kada Scott's family will be here. We're told that they will be holding a moment of silence later on this morning.
February 2nd, 2026 was the first day and first step towards getting justice for Kada Scott as Keon King had his preliminary hearing to see if the judge would move forward and agree that he should be charged. Loved ones of Kada Scott were said to have filled the courtroom, and Keon's mother, father, and brother were also in attendance at the hearing. It does not appear that cameras were allowed inside the proceedings, but it was said that the prosecutors showed videos and images from where Kada's body was found in October of 2025 that also stirred up emotional response from family members. During the preliminary hearing that stretched nearly 5 hours, prosecutors methodically laid out their evidence, replaying video after video on a courtroom TV as a detective testified about how they tracked Kada's final movements and Keon's efforts, they say, to conceal his murder. As loved ones watched, the prosecution laid out their case, which included pictures of Kada's deceased body in a shallow grave in the fetal position behind the abandoned Ada Lewis Middle School. Before showing those disturbing images, the judge warned the family of the nature of the photos, and some loved ones chose to leave the courtroom during that time. The October 18, 2025 discovery ended a 2-week search for 23-year-old Kada Scott, who disappeared on October 4, 2025, after she left the Chestnut Hill Senior Living Center where she worked. One of Kada's co-workers would take the stand and say Kada received a phone call shortly after arriving at work and appeared upset during that call, saying something to the effects of, "I can't believe that you're calling me," and appeared fearful with tears in her eyes. Prosecutors then laid out evidence to show that Keon King was the person who made that 43-second phone call to Kada. What was not made clear in court was why Kada left the safety of her job, went outside, and got into his vehicle, especially if she was already in tears and in distress. Detectives testified that camera footage at the Aubrey Arboretum recorded a silver hatchback vehicle pulling into a parking lot less than an hour before Kada's Apple Watch transmitted its final location at 1:14 a.m. on October 5th. Footage from the same cameras appeared to show two men removing an object from the car that appeared to be very heavy and walked in the direction investigators later would find Kada's burial site. An anonymous tip helped lead investigators into the woods near that middle school in East Germantown. An autopsy later determined that Kada had been shot in the head. Prosecutors said additional street cameras captured the same hatchback parked in a driveway behind a home on the 2300 block of 74th Avenue. Moments later, video showed a sudden flash of light and flames as the car was set on fire, destroying what authorities believe may have been physical evidence inside. Prosecutors made it clear that investigators did not rely on any single camera, but built a timeline that reconstructed pieces of footage from dozens of surveillance systems across the city. That effort allegedly led them to 21-year-old Keon King. Street cameras recorded a 1999 gold Toyota Camry registered to Keon traveling in the vicinity of the Arboretum around the same time activity was captured there. Police also tracked the movement of one of Kada's Apple devices after she left work, comparing its location data with license plate readers and surveillance video, a detective would testify. Everywhere this device went, Keon's car was said to have gone too. Cell phone records presented at the hearing would show that the two had exchanged text messages in the hours before her disappearance. The last message Kada sent asked Keon to call her when he arrived at the Senior Living Center. The final incoming call on her phone was at 10:12 p.m. on October 4th, and that was from Keon, according to law officials.
Keon King was charged with the murder of Kada Scott back in October. Her family says they last saw her when she left for her overnight shift at a Chestnut Hill senior living facility back on October 4th. Her body was found 2 weeks later behind the vacant Ada H. Lewis Middle School. Investigators say King was the last person to see her alive. The investigation has also found that King had a criminal record before his alleged involvement in Scott's case. He was accused of kidnapping and assaulting another victim in early 2025. That case was ultimately withdrawn. Now back out here live, online court records show the current attorney for Keon King is Robert Gamberg. So we are expecting to hear from him today.
Before the judge ruled, Keon's defense attorney argued that the prosecution's case relied too heavily on circumstantial evidence and failed to place his client directly at the scene of the murder. He went on to say that surveillance footage did not clearly identify any faces and could not establish who was inside and around the vehicle. He also pointed to testimony from a senior living center employee who said she saw Kada leave work that night and noticed a dark-colored Jeep parked outside the facility, not a silver hatchback. Keon's lawyer will go on to try to convince the judge to throw out the entire case. On the other end, the prosecuting attorney countered that investigators had assembled a detailed and corroborating account of Kada's final hours, one that showed not only Keon's proximity to her disappearance, but also steps taken afterwards to destroy evidence, making it clear that it was not just a coincidence, but proof that he was involved. After hearing both sides, the judge decided the prosecutors had presented sufficient evidence for the case to proceed and ordered it to be held for court. Keon remains behind bars with no bond, charged with murder, harm of a corpse, and related crimes. His next scheduled court date is February 23, 2026.
And now, in a Philadelphia courtroom today, prosecutors laid out evidence that they say they have against the man accused of kidnapping and murdering 23-year-old Kada Scott last year.
Now, Keon King, it is the first time we've seen him since he was taken into custody some 4 months ago, and his appearance is somewhat different. Gone is the long hair. He is now clean cut. There was very little emotion when he entered the courtroom at room number 306 on the 3rd floor of the Criminal Justice Center. People just looking as testimony flowed for about 5 hours inside that courtroom.
The judge ruled that the murder case against Keon King will move forward. This after disturbing details and photos were revealed in court today. Kada Scott's father, Kevin Scott, seen leaving court just a short time ago. Her family filled the courtroom for the preliminary hearing. Several investigators testified about Keon King's cell phone records showing he was in the vicinity of Scott's job as well as the school where her body was found. They also showed surveillance video that showed 2 people at a recreation center near that school. Prosecutors allege that King parked a stolen car there with Scott's body inside for more than 30 hours.
Now, family of Kada Scott did not want to speak to us today, but attorneys for the family had this message.
The Kada Scott family is continuing to grieve. In fact, their grief is unimaginable, but so is their commitment for finding and maintaining accountability for this.
Now, Kada Scott's phone, iPad, and Apple Watch were never found, but investigators testified today that they used an old iPad to trace her devices by using her Apple ID that was on that old iPad.
And this is video of attorney Robert Ganberg. He represents Keon King. He is walking out of the Criminal Justice Center along with the King family. While they declined to comment on camera, Robert Ganberg told me his client would be entering a plea of not guilty when he sees an arraignment judge that is set for later this month.
I was definitely not surprised by this outcome with Keon's past, plus all of the prosecuting attorney's evidence. My continued thoughts and prayers go out to Kada's mother, father, sister, family, and friends. And I hope that full justice will be served for a life that mattered and was cut way too short. So please don't forget to comment your thoughts and prayers for this family as they continue to seek justice. And hit that like button and share to make your people aware. And as always, remember to stay woke. Things change quickly.